The 7-foot soldier's fists could crush bone, but it was the look in his eyes that made everyone run, everyone except her. When Sergeant Jake Morrison came crashing through the base medical center doors at 2:47 a.m., Fort Bragg didn't just go quiet, it held its breath. 6'11" of pure, uncontrolled power, still in his combat fatigues, veins bulging in his neck, eyes wild like a cornered animal that had forgotten it was human. Medics pressed themselves against walls. A young private started backing toward the exit. The MP on duty's hand froze halfway to his sidearm. Caught between protocol and primal fear, this wasn't a soldier having a bad night. This was something far more dangerous, a warrior who'd lost control of his own mind. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening to this story. Unfold. Captain Linda Patterson had been the senior medical officer at Fort Bragg for 23 years. She'd seen combat wounds that should have been fatal, training accidents that defied explanation, psychological breaks that stopped time itself. But she'd never seen raw terror wear a soldier's face quite like this. Jake wasn't just big, he was a Green Beret, Special Forces, a force of nature compressed into flesh and blood. And right now, that force was about to explode. Something's wrong, he growled, and those two words carried more menace than any threat could have. His massive hands opened and closed at his sides, trembling with an energy that needed somewhere to go. Something's crawling inside my head. Major Richard Cooper, the base psychiatrist, approached like a man walking toward a live grenade. Behind them, near the medical supply cabinet, stood Corporal Sarah Mitchell, 3 months back from deployment. Young enough to still believe in heroes, old enough to know she wasn't one. She'd survived Kandahar. She hadn't expected the real fight to be here, on home soil. "Sergeant, we want to help you," Major Cooper said, his hands raised. "But you need to stand down." Jake's head whipped toward the major with the speed of a striking snake. For just a fraction of a second, something human flickered in his eyes, a brother in arms drowning beneath dark water. Then it vanished, swallowed by something primal and unstoppable. "Don't come near me." He lunged backward, his shoulders slamming into a medical cart that crashed to the floor. Instruments exploded across the tile. In the waiting area, soldiers pulled back. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the promise of violence. And then Jake moved. He crossed the distance to Major Cooper in one impossible stride, grabbing the officer by the front of his uniform and lifting him clean off the ground. Cooper's feet kicked at empty air, his hands clawing at fingers thick as steel pipes. Captain Patterson screamed for the MPs. The military police officer was already backing toward the exit. Time fractured. Sarah watched Major Cooper's face turn purple. She watched the other medics scatter. She watched Jake shake a field-grade officer like a child shakes a toy. And every survival instinct in her body screamed, "Take cover." Her feet didn't move. Instead, something else woke up, something honed sharp in Afghanistan, in hand-to-hand combat training, in the 100 small moments when size didn't matter but technique did. Her father had been Force Recon Marines. Her brother was Delta Force. She'd grown up where warriors taught warriors, where pressure points and leverage were dinner table conversation. She thought those days were behind her. She was wrong. Sarah moved before fear could catch her. 3 steps, low and balanced. She didn't reach for Jake's arms, that would have been suicide. Instead, her fingers found the exact spot below his ear where the vagus nerve ran close to the surface, and she applied pressure with the precision of a combat medic and the force of someone who understood exactly what that nerve controlled. Jake's entire body went rigid. His grip on Major Cooper released immediately. His knees buckled, and Sarah rode him down, maintaining the pressure, her other hand guiding his massive frame toward the floor with impossible control. "I've got you, Sergeant," she said, her voice steady, commanding the voice of a soldier who'd seen hell and come back. "You're safe, you're on base. Nobody's going to hurt you, but you need to let him go right now. That's an order." Jake's hands opened. Major Cooper stumbled backward, gasping. The giant sergeant collapsed to his knees, and Sarah went with him, one hand still on his neck, not hurting him now, just staying connected. An anchor in whatever storm was tearing through his mind. "What's your name, soldier?" she asked, her voice softer now but no less steady. "Jake," he whispered, and then he was crying great, body-shaking sobs that seemed impossible from someone so large, so trained, so dangerous. "I don't know what's happening to me." Sarah knelt beside him on the cold floor, her hand moving to rest gently on his shoulder, the way soldiers comfort each other in the dark. "We're going to figure it out," she said. "I promise you, brother, but I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" Jake nodded, tears streaming down his face. And suddenly he didn't look like a 7-foot Green Beret anymore. He looked like what? He was a warrior trapped inside a body his brain could no longer command. The doctors would discover the tumor later, a mass pressing against his amygdala, the fear center of his brain, turning every shadow into a threat and every friend into an enemy. The result of repeated blast exposure in combat, TBI compounded over years of service. The surgery at Walter Reed would save his life, but in that moment, kneeling on the floor of Fort Bragg's medical center, Sergeant Jake Morrison was saved by something else entirely, a fellow soldier who saw past the monster to the brother screaming for help underneath. Major Cooper straightened his uniform with trembling hands. "Where the hell did you learn to do that, Corporal?" Sarah looked up at him, still keeping one hand on Jake's shoulder. "My family, sir," she said simply. "Dad was Force Recon. Brother's Delta. They taught me that the biggest threats usually come from the biggest fear, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is move toward the threat when everyone else is moving away. We don't leave anyone behind." The medical center had gone silent. The staff sergeant was standing now, tears in his eyes. The young private had his hand over his mouth. Even the MP who'd backed away stared at Corporal Sarah Mitchell like he was seeing her for the first time. Jake lifted his head, his voice broken. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." "Nothing to be sorry for, Sergeant," Sarah told him. "You're sick. It's not your fault, and we're going to get you help. That's what brothers and sisters do." The story spread through Fort Bragg like wildfire. Corporal Sarah Mitchell, the quiet combat medic from Texas, the one who kept to herself, became a legend overnight, but she never saw it that way. To her, she'd simply done what soldiers do. She'd seen one of her own in trouble, and she'd helped him, even when that help required every ounce of courage and training she possessed. Because real courage doesn't announce itself with medals. Sometimes courage is a young soldier who steps forward when even the MPs step back. Sometimes it's seeing the warrior behind the horror and refusing to abandon them. Sometimes it's training and heart working together exactly when it matters most. And sometimes courage looks like a steady hand, a calm voice, and for words that change everything. "I've got you, brother," because in the military you don't leave anyone behind, not on the battlefield, not in the darkness, and not when the enemy is inside their own mind. If this story reminded you why we honor those who serve and protect each other, let me know in the comments. And if you believe in the kind of courage that shows up in combat fatigues and stands firm, hit that subscribe button, because the world needs more stories about warriors who don't look like heroes until the moment everything falls apart and they're the only ones left standing.